I always thought about harming myself.
I'm shy. I struggled with making friends.
I never thought I could do anything. I have extremely low self esteem.
Lately, I've been eating my pain away. Just throw it back up. I've been struggling to lose weight.
Somebody said I don't fit in just because I wear my hair the way I like it.
1 out of 5 American girls suffer from mental health problems. Don't be that girl. Talk to someone.
Those thoughts I had are long gone, for I have a future I need to get to.
In order to get better, I had to do better. I learned how to make friends.
I believe in myself. That's when everyone else did, I set an example.
Instead of me eating everything, I started watching my calories. The weight is falling off.
I went to change my hair, but I decided it was for me. It's for me.
A PSA from the Curvy Girl Project.
And good morning. Welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have a very, very informative half an hour that we'll be spending with you with our special guest, Dr. R. James Gregg. And today I've got a special co-host, and he is a young man whose name is Mr. Noah Stanton. And he's going to be assisting me today with our questions that we're going to have for Dr. Gregg. But before we get started, our calling numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. Our website is www.tv33whpr.com, and you're watching us live from the phenomenal cities Detroit, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Glenda McDonald. But before we get started, I just wanted to say that there's going to be a reactivation drive meeting that's going to be held this coming Sunday, which happens to be my birthday as well, but Sunday, February the 25th, and it's going to be held at Faith Tabernacle Church, and it's located at 16548 Hamilton Avenue in Highland Park, and it's going to be this Sunday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, because there's a drive to reactivate the oldest and the boldest civil rights organization in America, the NAACP. But if you can make it out there, definitely try and go and let them know that you are interested in reactivating. There was a branch there before, but they're looking at trying to reactivate that branch there now. And the other thing too is that there's going to be a city council meeting today at 6 o'clock in Highland Park. So there'll be members there from the reactivation committee that will be there to answer whatever questions that you may have pertaining to the reactivation of that branch there. Okay. We've got a phenomenal show today. Just wanted to thank Ms. Maxine Willis. She was a patient earlier for Dr. Gregg, and now we'll have Noah as a patient on the air today. But to pretty much show how chiropractic care has evolved in the years that it's been in existence. But, I'll turn this over to Noah so that he can pretty much like give you an operational how they do these things. And you're going to actually see a live demonstration on the air with Noah as a patient for Dr. Gregg of how exactly that's done. So this is Dr. R. James Gregg, and he is the director as well as the president of Gregg Chiropractic Life Center in Garden City, Michigan.
And yes, in Troy.
In Troy, Michigan as well. But Noah, I'll let you take over.
All right. Thank you for having me. Dr. Gregg, how you doing today?
Wonderful.
All right, that's good. That's good. So to start, I wanted to ask, what is chiropractic? Can you explain that, please?
Yes, very simply explained, I would say this. Chiropractic is an art, a science, and a philosophy. And it's based upon one very, very important thing, and that's called spinal subluxation. Now, what does all that mean? Well, if I take this and demonstrate it very quickly, I think everybody would understand it. This is actually what a human spine looks like. So inside we've got vertebra itself. We've got approximately 24 to 26 vertebrae. And if we look very carefully itself, we'll see a couple things. Number one, at the top, we'll see a yellow projection coming out here, and it's actually called the spinal cord. Now, the spinal cord runs inside of here from there all the way down to the lower part of the back, and you can see it coming out right here. If we look a little further, we can see that we have these little projections coming off of that cord. Those happen to be the nerves of the spine. Now, through bumps and bangs and various things that happen to people, what happens many times, of course, is the vertebra itself will shift out of position. Now, once that vertebra shifts out of position, it begins to cause pressure on that nerve. It starts to produce, in most cases, pain and discomfort. When that occurs, people seek care. Now, most of the time, what we try to do is we first go to the drugstore and we buy whatever we can buy, whatever we saw on television. But I'll tell you one simple thing. I have never found a pill, a potion, a powder, a syrup, a salve, or an injection that once you took it, that bone would do that. Medicine doesn't move bones off nerves. Well, how do we actually do that? Well, we begin the process of analyzing the spine and checking out every single one of those levels, especially in relationship to the complaints that the person is actually having. We then begin the process of gently moving the bone back into position. Now, for years, chiropractors used to use strictly their hands to do that, and many of us still do, and we actually still do that. But in most cases, we have evolved to a point where now there is tremendous equipment, if you will, that allows us to do the same thing, but at the same time with absolutely no sensation of any kind of discomfort. So let me demonstrate very simply what that means. What we're looking at right here, we're looking at a computer. We're looking at a computer that has a instrument attached to it, I should say. And what we're going to do here with Noah is we're going to take that instrument and we're going to apply it to the back of every single one of those bones that are out of position. What he's going to be feeling is a rapid vibration that will introduce a force into that joint and allow that joint to actually move. Now, once we've analyzed that, after we're done, we go back and analyze it again, and we can see how much it actually moved. Now, in the beginning days, we have to do that quite often with a patient because of one simple thing. This spine doesn't sit inside your body in a hollow place. It sits inside of you, and it's totally surrounded by muscles and ligaments and tissue. That's what holds bones in place. When a bone becomes displaced, the tissue around that bone, usually in the beginning, begins to tear. And it produces a lot of inflammation, a lot of swelling, and a lot of discomfort. So when we begin the process of moving this, most of the time, this has been out of position for a long, long time. That means the tissue has adapted to the abnormality, not the normal, but the abnormal. We've got to overcome that. Now, how we do that very simply is we gently begin the process of moving the bone away from the nerve. But when we move it, the muscle wants to take it right back to where it was, because that's where it's been for a long time. So in the beginning, we don't just take it and shove it back in there. We gently begin the process of moving it slowly. It'll slip a little bit. We'll move it again, slip a little bit, and pretty soon the muscle starts getting used to the new position we have it in. Now, that used to be done for years and years, I should say, by hand. We now have the ability itself not only to do it by hand, but we also have the ability now to do it with a computer. And the wonderful thing about the computer itself is that we are actually able to show the patient what we're doing. They're going to be able to see the before, and they're going to be able to see the after. And with that, it means an awful lot to a person, because the more understanding that that person has, the more they can help us in the process of getting them well. There are many things that people do in their daily activity not having any idea that what they're doing is making them worse. So we teach them, after we're done with this, we teach them, if you will, certain ways to do certain things. We talk about how they bend and how they lift. We talk about how they sleep at night. Various things itself that have a direct impact on that problem and the correction of that problem. So that's why I brought the computer here today, and I think, Noah, you and I are going to demonstrate that equipment. You'll actually be able to see which ones are out of position, and you'll actually be able to see the slight correction that we'll do with it. So I'd love the audience to do it. Yes, sir.
Now, one thing I was going to ask you too, and I'll let Noah ask the next question then. So a lot of times you just made mention about how you sleep, because I see a lot of commercials where they'll show people on pillows that show their alignment is off kilter. So is there a particular type of pillow, or how should you lay? Like, is it better to lay on your side, on your stomach,
Well, if you
on your
look,
back?
if you look today, Darwin, there are so many pillows that they advertise, and there are some that are good. So I always advise an individual, if they have a pillow at home that they're using, bring it in with you, and we'll take a look at it. Because what we want them to do is be up on their side if they can. We want to be able to fill the gap from the mattress to the side of the head. That gap is filled with something that keeps their head in alignment with their spine. So if that were their head and that was their body, when they lay down, I want their head and their body to stay the same. It's that simple.
Good. Noah?
Okay. Well, my next question. Well, you seem to, based on your explanation here, you seem to be like really, really passionate about this. So, I just wanted to ask, like, what do you enjoy most about this kind of work?
Well, I'll tell you probably the greatest satisfaction that I have. That I had a problem when I first began, and this was in the early days before I was even a chiropractor. My friend was a chiropractor, and he was the only one that took care of me. I had went to many, many doctors with an injury I had to my lower back, and he was the only one that corrected it. And from that point forward, I was excited to know how he did it, what he did, and he told me and he taught me. So then we went to school, and of course it was many, many years later I was able to come home and work with him for a while, and that's where we are today.
Dang. All right. That's really cool. All right. Well, I'm going to ask one more question, and then maybe we can get on to the demonstration.
Sure.
What does a typical work day look like for you?
A work day for me?
Yes.
Well, a work day for me usually is about maybe 12 hours. We see patients usually from 9 till about 6 in the day, and we see a tremendous amount of people. And that's probably my greatest thrill, is to deal with people, interacting with people all day long, and being able to do things that when the patient leaves, they're not only satisfied, they're happy.
Now, Dr. Greg, before you start with your demonstration with Noah, at what age could you start somebody to see you?
Excellent question. My sons, I have 2 sons itself. One is a chiropractor, the other is a police officer. Both of them were adjusted when they were about 2 to 3 minutes old.
Wow.
So when I delivered them, immediately their spines were checked. Now, why would you do that? Well, the birth process involves a tremendous amount of contraction, tremendous amount. And as that baby is being forced through that canal, many times a little slight alignment, and it usually happens at the base of the neck. So our base, I should say, of the skull. And a little tapping type of adjustment corrects that instantly. Because the vertebrae have not been held in place, I should say the muscle is not holding the vertebra in an abnormal position. The muscle has hardly even developed yet.
So repeat again, you said as early as?
The earlier the better.
The earlier the better.
That's correct.
Okay.
I have many, many patients that bring their infants right away. And we check them out, and then we check them periodically, because nobody beats their brains out more than kids.
So can you see something just a physical, can you look
Sure you
and
can.
see once that person comes in
Sure you
what
can.
may be going on with them?
That's why it's so important when a person comes in and when we interact with a person, I'm analyzing that individual immediately. As they're walking, I look at it. I look how they walk. Are they bent? Many people are bent slightly forward when they walk. It's a disaster. But why are you in that position? 9 times out of 10, because it's a little more comfortable. But why is it comfortable? Because when they do this, which is normal, it hurts.
It hurts. Okay, I'll let you two get ready
Okay.
to set up for the demonstration.
Oh, you can come right here. All right.
Because I think that the thing is that when a lot of people, when they don't
Sit here and face
realize
that way.
that they are having issues, most times they don't really realize that there could be more damage that they could be doing thinking that they're in comfort, but then it's doing more damage that could be on a long-term basis. Is that correct, Dr. Greg?
That's correct.
And see, that's the other thing that people don't really realize. Okay, Dr. Greg, are you about ready?
I'm going right now.
Okay. And what Dr. Gregg is doing is you can see that he's putting the instrument
Now,
on
if you turn
the
around,
base,
Noah, you're going to see something here. I'm
on the
sorry,
base of
Noah.
the neck. Go ahead.
Now, what you're seeing here very simply is this instrument obviously is attached to a computer. And when we actually use this in analyzing, Noah's spine, we check the neck area. What we're doing very simply is the instrument is actually introducing a small force into the joint. And then it registers how that joint moves in relationship to that force, and it shows it in a graph. So when we look up here, Noah, what we're looking at is those green bars. The green bars represents every single bone in your neck area. Now, when we look at a graph, what we hope to see all of those green bars behind that underlying white line. Anything sticking out past it indicates that we have pressure, we have restriction, and of course, in most cases, a person will have pain. Second of all now, which is more significant, you'll see red ones. Well, the red ones indicate that in the area, there is a microspasm. Now, when that microspasm occurs, it actually locks that joint. So it's a very, very difficult thing to move. That's why we have to spend maybe a little bit more time on the red area than perhaps the other areas. But once we do that, then we go back immediately and check the graph to see if it cleared. And of course, it usually does. Now, we're able to do here with Noah, like we did earlier, we will do a small, simple adjustment itself in the neck region. Let me go right here. Okay. And all Noah's going to feel is just a little rapid vibration. There's no pain involved.
No, I can see a smile on your face, so it looks like it's not hurting.
It's not hurting at all. I expected some kind of pain, but like it's just a buzz, really.
That's right.
Honestly, feels really nice. Actually.
Now let's go down again. Let's go back up here again.
So now you started from the base of the skull,
Right.
and you're going on down his neck.
Now I want you to look. Now you see when we first analyzed Noah here, you'll see that we have the bars coming out and touching the line. In the lower area, we have those green bars actually surpassing that line. Next thing we see, as we indicated, we see the red areas. Now the red areas indicate inflammation as well as microspasm.
Explain inflammation.
Inflammation actually is a good thing in the beginning when you have damage. It's actually part of the healing process. Where inflammation really becomes a major problem is when the problem is actually healed, but the inflammation continues on, what they call chronic inflammation. Now, this creates a spasm. When that spasm occurs, it locks that joint right in position. So it's a little harder, as I mentioned earlier, to actually correct that. But Noah corrected, and I think a lot of it is because of his age. It's much easier to deal with a younger individual than it is older, only because most people have had more damage. Now, once we actually went in and moved that area and adjusted it, as we call it, then we go back and recheck it again. Well, here's where we were when we started, and here's where we are now, Noah. So now you can see the red ones are gone completely. Now look at the bottom one here, how it's moved all the way back behind that line. So that was an excellent adjustment. The key thing to remember is it will not stay there, because the muscles and ligaments are used to holding it here. So in time, it'll pull that right back to where it was. So what you have to do in the beginning days with people, or patients I should say, you have to begin the process of seeing them with some regular consistency. Now the reason for that is when that muscle pulls it back, we've got to repeat it again. When you move this, you only move it a little tiny bit, because if you moved it any further than that, you would tear the tissue. Now he would have more pain. But he didn't feel any pain at all, because as we moved it, once the resistance started or the instrument started to feel the resistance, it stopped. So it went as far as, and actually the correction was pretty darn good, but the muscle will still pull it back. We'll repeat it, and repeat it very close together in the beginning days to allow the muscle and ligament to get used to the new position versus the old.
And then you start from the base of the
Brain all the way down to the lower part of the
all the way down to the lower part. So Noah, describe how do you feel now that he's done that? I can see the smile on your face, but do you notice any difference?
Well, immediately after he finished, I did notice a difference in that I could like more easily move my neck without feeling any kind of pain. Even now, I can turn it.
That's right.
You know, I don't have to like.
So your peripheral view in terms, say, from side to side, seems to be a whole lot better
Absolutely.
than what it was before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he adjusted very, very well. And I think one of the things is very, very important, Darwin, is that the people have to have an understanding and an explanation. The doctor has to explain it in a way that they can understand it. You know, most times doctors talk like patients, like they talk to other doctors. Well, they don't understand that. That took us years to understand that language. But when you talk to an individual, they've got to understand it to the degree that when they leave that office, they've got to know how to take care of that. So the next time we see it, we don't lose it all. Then we move it again and again until it stays. Once it stays, we cut their schedule all the way down to a point. Most people are seeing on average of when they get to that point, probably about once every 2 weeks or once a month. Once it stabilizes, usually once a month is plenty, unless, God forbid, they have an injury. And of
Okay.
course, we've got to go back in and check that area out.
So describe in terms of, say, Dr. Greg, about the type of insurances that you would cover.
Most all insurances cover chiropractic care. They do have different restrictions, varying restrictions on the amount of care that is rendered, how often, whatever. These types of things, these are things that our staff handle beforehand. So they go through it with the individual so the individual understands fully what their responsibility is.
Did you have another question for him?
I did actually. So, seeing as you have years of experience with this, you are, of course, familiar with the work that you have to do. But I wanted to ask: is there any aspect of this work that you would change or get rid of completely?
Any aspect of the treatment itself?
The treatment, having to talk to the patient, just any aspect of the work.
No, not. I wouldn't change anything. I would just hopefully ask the doctors, especially those that I have a chance to teach, to get better and better at explaining it in a way that people can take it home and still understand it. You know, I don't want them to go home and do exactly the same thing they did that caused the problem. So if you explain it properly, they now understand there is a way to sleep, there is a way to bend, there is a way to lift. Simple things, simple changes that can make a world of difference in how they feel and how fast they get well.
Now, you used a real key word, Dr. Greg, when you said teach.
What's that?
When you used the word teach.
Teeth?
Teach.
Oh,
Like
teach.
you teach.
Yes.
Because it sounds like there's a lot more teaching, a lot more education in what you do as a chiropractor.
Very much so. And the education part to the patient is vital. Because if the person leaves your office without understanding and goes right back to the exact same lifestyle they had before, they're wasting their time.
So they could just exacerbate the problem.
Yeah. And let's face it, that happens a lot of times, not just in doctors of chiropractic, but with many doctors. The patient leaves the office, they go home, they continue to do the thing that created the problem, but they don't know that. Now the problem gets worse, and what do they say? That didn't work.
Right.
I'm not going to see that doctor anymore. Well, that's the doctor's fault. The doctor's got to put it in a way that the patient understands. Now, once they understand it, if they choose not to do it, then don't do it. That's their choice.
We've got about 6 minutes left.
Okay.
So, Noah, did you want to ask another question? And I'll ask a follow-up question to you.
I just had one more question for you.
Sure.
So, well, you have this device here, but I wanted to ask, what other types of equipment or like electronic equipment do you use?
Well, in the office itself, we have a couple different things. Well, the number one key, not only before we ever get to this instrument, obviously, is the X-ray. The X-ray will tell us a couple things. It'll show us, and I like the patient to be able to see the X-ray and go over it with them and teach them a way to understand it. Because let's face it, if I just put up the X-ray, you would never even know what I'm talking about. But if I explain it to the individual now is very, very attentive of what is the problem. When they understand that, they now understand why I want you to do this versus that. I want you to do it this way versus that way. And it's important for them to have that knowledge. Because when they leave that office, as I said, they go right back into the same world that that brought them in here. Now, you have to teach them a little bit because some of that world involves their work activity. Well, there's a lot of jobs that really are killing people. But if we teach them a little bit different way to do it, they can still do it, but they're going to be better.
Now, just in the few minutes we have left, kind of just go into a little bit because, as you were saying earlier about people that go and they go to the drugstore, go to the, to the various different places, and they get like the different balms and analgesics and pills and things like that.
Well, as I said before, Darren, what I call the greatest doctor in the world is a television tube. You know, you watch that television tube, and there's probably not an hour that goes by without 3 or 4 different commercials for some
Right,
kind of medication. And usually the medication itself is revolving around symptoms. Well, that's understandable to some degree. But the big thing that people don't understand is they think that when they take that medication and all of a sudden they don't feel, if you will, the pain, or they feel a lessening of whatever symptom they have, my God, they think that's the greatest thing in the world. So they keep on taking it. But let me tell you something that might shock you. The pain that a person is having, the symptoms that a person is having, is not the problem. It's what caused those symptoms and that problem. That is the problem. And if you don't deliver that understanding that this is the problem, not what you're feeling. So I'll put it simple. I've never found a pill, a potion, a powder, a syrup, or an injection that ever once applied, that bone moved off that nerve. It doesn't work that way. So I've got to teach them some things that the medication itself could be a very valuable asset, but we really would like to see an individual get to a point where perhaps they don't need any medication.
Well, let's hope that we can do that. I do want you to give your contact information. We've got a couple minutes left. Just give your contact information real quick.
To do what?
Give your contact information. Where can somebody reach you, or where you're located at?
Well,
because I know you say you have two offices, one in Troy and one in
yes, the main
Garden
office
City.
that's 734-525-8422. And the main person to ask for is Lisa. Lisa's my daughter, by the way, but she is also the administrator and manager of both offices.
Okay.
So she can give you a lot of information about what is better for you, where it's closer for you, whatever, and questions that you might have regarding your insurance or various things. She's definitely the person that can do it.
Okay. Well, I do want to thank you, Dr. Gregg, for coming on the show with us today. Noah Sten, I do want to thank you for helping me to get this information disseminated out to all of our, viewers. I definitely want to thank our other patient, Ms. Maxine Willis, for allowing us to get an opportunity to go and kind of see, how that's done. And Dr. Gregg, I'm hoping that this was a good educational opportunity for people.
So.
And give you a call and give that number again one more time.
It's 525-8422. And the person to ask for again is Lisa. And I will tell you one other thing. Your first visit itself, your examination is totally free.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they don't have to mention they saw us on Expose Under the Sun.
They can come in, they get their exam, they don't have to pay for the exam. They look at what we got, what we want to do. If they want to do it, we're ready to do it.
That's excellent. Well, definitely, this has been a very informative, half an hour. I'm hoping and praying that everybody that got a chance to go and see this. And I do want to thank Tim Smith, because Tim pretty much arranged everything for us to be able to go and do this. So again, the engineer extraordinaire, here at the station for arranging this so that we could have all the props, all the visuals and everything to be able to do this.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank both of you for having me.
Thank you again. Thank you. And you have been watching Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. And if you would like to get a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at area code 313-459-5944. And if you'd like to advertise in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can contact her, for that reason as well. But again, I do want to remind everybody what Dr. Gregg was saying, that you need to go and make certain that you look at preventative measures to keep from having the problem. And the one good thing I like with Noah on the show is that it gives him an opportunity to see what things that he may have been doing in the years that he's been on this earth that he might do differently so that he doesn't exacerbate the problem, so that when he gets to be, a little bit older, that those problems aren't anything that could be kind of chronic.
Talk for them. We do that, so she also can handle that for
Great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. We are signing off. Thank you again for watching Expose Under the Sun today.
For young ladies ages 12 to 18. For more information, visit our website at fulandfabulous.org. See you soon.